Hey there, drone fans. Rick here again from Drone Valley. In today's video, I'll answer the question, how good is the zoom on the brand new DJI Mavic 3? Now, I know this is an incredibly hot topic of conversation just based on the number of questions and comments that we've gotten from viewers. I can also tell from some of those questions that there may be a little confusion out there about exactly how zoom works on a digital product like a drone. So I thought I'd start off with a brief discussion explaining the two most popular methods that companies use to implement zoom on their products and really explain the differences between them, because that really matters. And then I'll give you a few examples of what the Mavic 3 can accomplish from a few hundred feet in the air using the hybrid 28x zoom to pull in tight on a subject with incredible clarity to give you amazing pictures and phenomenal video while you're flying your drone. Now, if you're one of those viewers that doesn't like a long explanation, isn't really into the science, and you want to get a quick answer to how good the zoom is on the Mavic 3, if I had to sum it up in one word, I would say unbelievable. It really is that good. And I'll back that up with some pictures, but it's not just the zoom functionality that's built into the camera. There's a whole lot more that goes into the ability to zoom in on an object and keep that crystal clear clarity while you're flying around in the air with wind buffeting you and everything else going on. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. But if you're not and you just want to know if it's good, it's not just good, it's unbelievable. So anyway, let's get into the details. So zoom is a function that's been implemented in a lot of digital devices over the years, and I think where a lot of the confusion came from in those questions were around things like, well, I bought a drone from DJI that couldn't zoom, and then a firmware update came out, and all of a sudden, poof, the drone can zoom. Now, I know you can't ship me new lensing systems over a firmware update, so how are they able to accomplish the zoom functionality on the same camera that was glued to the drone when I bought it? And that's a great question. So there are two fundamental ways that companies can implement a zoom function. They can do it digitally, digital zoom. They can do it optically, optical zoom. Now, most of the drones that have upgrades over firmware, actually all the drones that are upgraded over firmware, use a digital zoom. Now, a digital zoom is a bit of a magic trick where essentially what you're doing is you're seeing the same image, you've got the same sensor, you're collecting the same amount of information, but the digital zoom actually blows up that image digitally. It'll actually expand the image. And that works really well for like a 2x or a 4x increase in size. But if you get over 4x, what you're going to find is as you pull those pixels apart, it's going to get fuzzy. You may lose color, you're going to lose clarity for sure. So anything over 4x is really difficult to do through a digital zoom. Although, as a firmware update, it does give you the ability to pull in a little bit tighter on a subject, and I love it. So if a drone company comes out with a firmware update that implements that function, hats off to them. I think that's a great feature to have in there. The other option, which is a better option, is an optical zoom. Now, an optical zoom requires a specialized camera that has a lensing system inside that can be adjusted to actually pull the picture in tight. So it's giving you the same image on your sensor on the back, but it's adjusting that image to pull in optically on that image to give you a much more clear image on that sensor. So an optical zoom is much better. The unfortunate part about an optical zoom is it's more expensive, and it's really only available in a couple of different drones that are on the market. Now, DJI had the original Mavic 2 Zoom, which was their zoom product, and that actually had an optical zoom in the camera, and I love that product. I felt like that 1/2.3 inch sensor with the optical zoom allowed me to fly further away from things, pull in nice and tight so I wasn't annoying neighbors if I was pulling in on a point of interest near them, or if I was pulling in on something out in the wilderness. Maybe there's a deer or a duck or something else that I want to get a better picture of. I can fly 300 feet in the air, pull in nice and tight, and get a beautiful picture or some video of that duck by using that optical zoom. Now, what's a little confusing about the Mavic 3 is they're calling it a hybrid zoom. And in the Mavic 3, they're actually using an optical zoom for part of it and a digital zoom for part of it, and I'll explain the difference in a minute there. But the key thing to remember is that you need a specialized camera. So my frustration, a lot of people's frustration with the Mavic 2 was they released two products. They released the Pro with the 1-inch sensor, which was phenomenal for capturing images and pictures and video, and they released the Zoom, which had a smaller 1/2.3 inch sensor with the optical zoom. So now you have to decide between the two. Do I need the zoom or do I need the better pictures? And a lot of us bought both because there are needs for both of those in different situations. What's perfect about the Mavic 3 is they've actually built two cameras into that housing. So on the bottom camera, you have a Hasselblad 4/3 sensor, which is the main camera for the drone. DJI allows you to digitally zoom 2x and 4x through this camera as the first stage of the overall zoom function. The top camera features a 1/2-inch sensor and is equipped with a fixed telephoto lens, and this camera can naturally provide a 7x optical zoom of the original image and can even have the same 2x and 4x digital zoom applied to deliver 14x and 28x magnification. Now, where are you going to find that break? Because there are a couple of different stops, if you will, or detents we like to call them, where that zoom functionality works in the Mavic 3. So it starts off with a 1:1, which is a standard picture. You can go 2x, 4x, then it jumps to 7x, 14x, and 28x. Now you have a couple of ways you can choose that. You can actually do it on the controller, and I'm showing an image of that now, where you can tap that little button on the side and it'll go to 2x, 4x, 7x, 14, and 28x. You can also slide your finger up and adjust it manually so you can zoom in a little bit smoother. Or you can use the standard method where you're pushing the function button down and using the thumb wheel. Normally the thumb wheel controls up and down on the camera, but if you hold the function button down and then use this, you can actually zoom in a little bit more linearly, so it's a little smoother. Now the digital at 7x and even 14x still looks phenomenal to me. 28x, depending on what you're focusing on, it can get a little bit fuzzy. And I found that with the 28x, if it's a small object like a bird or a person or something small, that can be pretty fuzzy. But if you're doing a landscape shot, and I'll show you some examples in a minute of a building or an area or a tree or some point of interest that's larger, it does a tremendously good job. So I love it a lot. Now the other beautiful part about that is that you have all kinds of other controls that are needed to implement a zoom like that. Because when you think about it, I'll give you two examples. A digital zoom is like you're on your phone, you're looking at a picture, and when you spread your fingers like that and you zoom in, you're pulling in at a digital zoom, and you notice that it gets pixelated. If you're doing post-editing and you enlarge an image 125 times or 150 times, that's a digital zoom. An optical zoom is much like a binocular, or if you're using a DSLR with a zoom lens and you rotate that ring on the front, that's actually adjusting those lenses to pull it in. Having the ability to do both really gives you the best of both worlds, because you can do the optical where you need it if you're close enough to an object, but having that digital zoom layered on top of it really makes a big difference, because I can now take that optical image, which is fantastic because the lens has produced it, and increase it even more using that digital zoom. So that's why the hybrid name is used with it. Now, a couple of things that have to be in the drone beyond just the camera, because a lot of people said, oh, okay, big deal, they built in a zoom camera to the drone. That's where it starts, because the camera is only a tiny part of capturing that image at distance. Think about it a second. If you've ever used a camera with a zoom lens, what's the first rule of zoom lensing? You've got to use a tripod. If you try to hold a camera and pull on something a couple hundred yards away, those micro movements in your hands are going to make that image fuzzy. Imagine a drone 300 feet in the air that's being buffeted by the wind and the gimbal's trying to keep up with everything to try to keep that image stable. That's a whole different animal. So having the ability to have the stability built in, and that electronic image stabilization, which helps that stability to give you that clarity at 28x, that's what blew me away the most. Not the fact that they could zoom in 28x and pick up an image. That's the lensing system. Okay, good on them. They're using Hasselblad. It's a Swedish company. Fantastic camera. There's nothing to pick on there. But having the camera up in the air is a tiny part of the actual overall algorithm that needs to happen to give you that image back. And that's where a lot of other companies fall apart, is that you can build a zoom lens on a camera and put it on a drone, stick it up in the air and hope for the best. But to get that image crystal clear like DJI's done in this Mavic 3 takes another level of engineering to make sure the stability in that quad is strong enough to handle those buffeting winds and have that gimbal adjust and make sure that lens stays right on your subject. And I think they do a phenomenal job. And I'll show you that next. So this first example we're looking at is a racetrack near me. They train a lot of horses near me, so I'm way away. I'm probably I'm exactly 150 feet in the air, and I'm a good 1,000 meters away from that particular track. Now, what I'm going to do is step through the 2x, the 4x, the 7x, this is the 14x, and here I am at 28x. Now you can see at 28x, it's fuzzy. It's not nearly as clear as the 14x. But for me, if I was trying to get an image of the area or I was trying to zero in on something, I think they did a pretty good job. But again, I still can't get over that image that clear at that distance using this camera. Now this next one I took on a little bit more of a cloudier day. So it's overcast because I wanted to see how that would impact it, because it's more of a low light situation. Did it get grainier in low light situations? So again, here I am. In this case, I'm up about 100 feet and I'm over the marshlands, and that bridge is about 1,500 feet away from where I'm standing. And I'll pull in 2x, there's the 4x, the 7x, 14x, and here I am at 28x. Now that to me, it just blew me away when it did that, because you can see the different colors of those boards on that bridge at that point, and I could pretty much make out anything that was standing there. So if there was a snowy white egret sitting on the side there trying to get a minnow, I could capture that on video or footage and get some fantastic images of it. Okay, this next one is a machine. I thought, well, can I focus on a subject where I'm closer, and what would the zoom look like to bring it in closer? So in this one, I'm only about 100 feet above that particular, I don't know what you'd call it, a tumbler there where they sort rocks and different grits of dirt. So I pulled up on that 100 feet above it. I'm pulling in here at a 2x. There's the 4x. There's my 7x, 14x, and 28x. Now, when you look at that 28x, I'm close enough where you can hear the drone, so I'm closer to it than I was in the other images. But that clarity of pulling in tight on that object that close gives me great definition of that machine. That one totally blew me away, so I was very impressed by that. Now, the last one, this was kind of a long shot, and I thought, well, let me give it a shot. I'm out there over the field. There's a church up there on the hill. I wonder what I can see that far away. So on this one, the drone is close to me. It's only about maybe 600 feet away from me, but I'm imaging, or I'm focusing on an image, I should say, up the hill that's almost 2,000 feet away from me. Now that's a long distance. Now again, I'm within visual line of sight because it's right off there. I'm watching the drone, but I'm focusing on a church downstream this way. Now here's the images. So again, about 2,000 feet out, this is 2x. You can't even see the church. This is 4x. Here's 7x, 14x, and finally 28x. And I've got a great image of that church. And please keep in mind, that drone's flying 100 feet in the air. The winds are whipping, man. They're moving that day. So the drone's got to wrestle with all those winds. It's got to keep the lens on that subject. So I could snap pictures, and if I took 6 pictures in a row and lined them up, they'd almost be exactly the same. Okay, it may have moved a little bit, but I think it's phenomenal. So as far as I'm concerned, the hybrid function on this is fantastic. And in my opinion, I'm sticking with optical most days, so I'm close enough to something where I'm going to pull in tight with the optical. I know I'm going to get a crisper image. But if I want to back up even further, going to a 2x or 4x on the digital zoom on top of the optical, which puts me at either the 7x or the 14x as far as the metrics on the controller goes, I still have tremendously good video. And if I really need that extra amplification or magnification, I'll pull in a 28x to give me a view of what's going on there. And then I can fly closer if I need to get a better picture of that. So overall, it's pretty phenomenal. Now, again, between the different methods, I found that if I'm taking pictures using the application by tapping the button on the screen to go to 2x or 4x, seemed to work pretty well. I was not as impressed with the finger when you move the finger up and down on the application, because when you get to that 7x, you'll notice immediately the digital kicks in. The other thing that's interesting is it shifts the image a little bit, so it's not a smooth pull in all the way through 28x from the original image. It sort of gets to that 7x mark and it jumps a little to the left, so I had to adjust it. So for me with video, I would keep it within the optical range to try to, eliminate that jumping. But if I got into the digital, once I went past 7x, I could pull in tighter and still keep the image in the center of the frame. Now, I'm sure that's something they're going to fix, because I've had other companies that have had digital imaging solutions on their products, and it was a bit of a hassle. When you pulled in tighter, it did shift the image around, and through firmware, they adjusted that. I'm running beta firmware on this unit still, so I think when the release firmware comes out, I'm sure they'll get a lot of those little gremlins out of the software. I'm hoping at least. The one thing I did enjoy, though, was the ability to push the function button and use the thumb wheel, because as a photographer, I like to have complete control over where I zoom, where I stop with the zoom, and using the detents by tapping the application kind of locked me into that 2x, 4x, 7x, 14x, and 28x. By using this, I had a lot more control where I could get in between those different resolutions, or I should say focus, and pull it into exactly what I needed. So overall, I said it before, it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable, because what DJI has done with the Mavic 3 for me is they've given me the best of two quads in one quad. They've taken the Mavic 2 Pro and the Mavic 2 Zoom, blended them together in a single chassis. The zoom function on this is far and away better than I can do on my Mavic 2 today. The optical zoom is outstanding, and the digital zoom, I think they did a phenomenal job blowing up that image digitally, and the algorithms that assume what those white spaces should look like between the pixels to correct for that is just spot on. So for me, another feature on this product that is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I hope you enjoyed this clip. If you have questions that we haven't answered yet, please drop those in the comments below. I promise we'll get to them. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, we're in November. December's coming up, which means the 12 days of Drone Christmas are coming, Drone Valley Christmas. So you want to subscribe to the channel, because we got a lot of cool stuff coming. There's a lot of content that we're going to be publishing on drones and other high-tech gear that you're not going to want to miss. Hit that subscribe button down there and join the Drone Valley family so you don't miss any of that stuff. And again, I just want to thank you at the end of this video for the amazing support you've shown the channel. I just love talking about technology, and it gets me out of the kitchen driving my wife nuts to get down here and talk about core technology. You guys seem to be enjoying it. And as long as you're finding value in these clips, we'll keep producing them. So thank you so much for your support over the years. And until next time, happy flying.